Hi friend, welcome back to my channel. It has been way too long since we talked about the palettes that I'm trying to pan this year. So let's go ahead and dive in. Before I show you what my palettes currently look like, let's go back in time and refresh ourselves on what my palettes look like at the last update. And now let us take a look at my palettes today. Let's start first with my Shadow Kiss palette. Now we'll look at my Urban Decay Naked Wild West mini palette. And here's what my LORAC Mini Pro Sparkling palette looks like. All right, so let's start first with my Alter Ego Shadow Kiss palette. So exciting. I have finished off Zeal, which was the last official shadow that I was looking to wipe out in this palette. As a reminder, these three up here were ones that I had decided back in last year, I feel like maybe around this time, that I wasn't really keen on using or loving. There's something about the formulation of these three that is just different than most of the palette that I don't particularly love. It's more of a fussy shadow collection there. So I don't love it. I decided to write them off. However, when I finished off Zeal, I had this kind of identity crisis moment where I was like, do I not want to use those three shades? What am I doing? Do I even remember these three shades? So I decided to give them a whirl, and I played with the idea of keeping this palette around for these three. However, I'm not doing it. I was reminded when I would play with them that they're just fussy. There's a ton of fallout. I don't love how they don't blend super well. They're just not a great formulation. So I have committed fully to saying goodbye to this palette. It truly has been a pleasure to use the majority of the shades in here. This was definitely a palette that I think checks off a lot of my preferences and makeup style that I like to do. So it has been delightful. It's been a delightful journey, and it is still available for purchase. Similarly to other palettes that I've panned, even when I love them and they have been pretty easy and straightforward to use, it sort of scratches that urge and I don't feel compelled to want to buy the palette again. It also probably helps that I have a lot of other shadow in my collection that I can pull from and use, but really proud of myself. I've used up this palette and it was a good one. So happy to officially retire her. Okay, so that begs the question of what am I doing now? Because all I'm left with are these two palettes. And I kind of had a crisis of myself where I was just like, what am I gonna do? And then I said, well, don't decide anything about that. Just play with what you have and make some discoveries. So played, I did. I basically have found that my favorite shade is Cowboy Rick. It's what I have on my lid right now. I love it. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to really love an intense silvery kind of look, and I do. I just love a cool tone. So I've really been mostly playing with this. I've occasionally used whiskey, but I just don't really love it. And because I have a gold in my LORAC palette, I don't see myself using Rustler. So here's what I've kind of come to for an agreement with myself about this palette. I just want to use Cowboy Rick. If I get Cowboy Rick finished, there's a real chance I'll say goodbye to the rest of this palette, which is a waste of money, but it's just where I'm at. I'm not going to force myself to use a collection of shades that I'm not really that into. So I at least know that I like Cowboy Rick. And my go-to look with Cowboy Rick has actually been coming from the LORAC Sparkling. I've been using this shade, which is what I have in my crease. It looks almost like a pink. I feel like when you're seeing it in pan, but in application, it kind of has more of a brown leaning-esque pink. I've never really had a shade like that, but I'm just working my way through it. And then I also, with this, I hit pan, which truthfully is not that noteworthy in here, but I just didn't want to keep going with gold. I really laid into Zeal. I met my goal of finishing it before the school year ended because right now I'm just not wearing makeup that much. I occasionally will put some eye makeup on my face, but when I'm just hanging out with my kids and we're just going to the pool every day or we're just gonna hang out outside, I don't feel compelled to put makeup on. So I didn't want to prioritize using it, but I do have this shade up here to work through alongside this. Obviously, I will finish this off before I finish the lid shade. So I will then move over here and see if I like these two together. If not, I know that I can come back to my Naked Wild West. And if I haven't used Cowboy Rick, I can come over here and use this shade. It's not my favorite, but it's not unusable. It's just a bit more fussy, but it'll get the job done. So as we stand sitting here, my plan is to still just stick with it and use these two palettes. I am pleased that I did finish off another shade in here since the last update. I am not sure I will do another update until school resumes and I go back to work because I don't know if I'm gonna have any noteworthy progress. If I have noteworthy progress, I'll happily come back and give you an update, but don't be surprised if it's not until September that you hear me chatting with you about these because again, I'm just not wearing a ton of makeup right now, but I don't know, I feel pretty good. I was really unsure, I feel like in the last update where I just wasn't sure what direction we were gonna go in, but now that I've got Shadow Kiss out of my life and I was able to have some clarity and do some playing with these two, I think that I've got renewed energy and focus for what I wanna do with these, and we'll just see where we go from there. Thank you so much for being here, checking in with me on my project, and I'll catch you in my next video real soon. Bye.